So, straight to the point. I'm crafty. And on today's episode, I will show you how to build a modular and fully customizable pit wall for your slot car racing track. Having said that, I'll be also giving you free downloadable templates, so you can easily make it yourself. This build is fully compatible with all my crash walls and fences builds, and it can stand alone or be used with the other builds as a complete system. If you haven't seen any of those, go check them out. Like and subscribe if you want more in the future. Also in today's episode, I'll turn acrylic into glass, I'll super glue my finger onto stuff, and I'll be using big boys tools. So let's get going. For starters, we need to make a base that will fill the gap between the offset pit lane that we made on a previous episode and our main straight. For that, I will be using a 9mm MDF board. Try to get accurate measurements, down to a millimeter, to have a tight fit. Those are my measurements, but don't rely on those as yours most likely will be different. After dividing the length, I decided to make 4 individual pieces that will make it easier to put in place and remove or change if needed in the future. I then trace the bends for an accurate cut. Next step, painting. I start with a coat of primer to seal the surfaces and then proceed with different shades of gray for a concrete look. I then spray some white and black paint. That will give texture and depth and will make it look more realistic. And last, a layer of varnish to protect our work. For some detailing, I'll glue on those branded lines and drain covers. That will give us a nice detail and will help us align the pit wall pieces ladder. To connect the base pieces, I'm using men's greatest invention, duct tape. After our base is ready, we can move on with building the pit wall pieces. I will be following the template I created to make it easier. You can find free links in the video description section for all the templates and special materials used in this build. Like that, we have our floor and wall pieces for 11 pit walls. I will be also doing a start and an end piece. Using the template again, I mark where I'll be drilling holes and proceed to do so using a 3mm drill bit. For the wall, I drill 3 holes on the top for the fencing. If you want to attach the piece on the base using dowels, I also included a diagram marked as bottom. Time to do the start and end pieces. With that, you should end up with multiple pieces that look like this. After cutting all our pieces, we can curve the step and drainage cover. The drain hole is there for future wiring coming from under the table. I designed the cover to be rectangular, but I have this small square wood pieces, so I will go with that. Carving MDF is pretty easy, but take your time by removing a small portion at the time. That will make the end result more accurate. Once done with that, I'll paint it using the same method as before. After priming, I connect all the floor and wall pieces using hot glue. A small painting trick I always use is to lightly tap a painted surface with a sponge. That will break the brush strokes and remove any excess paint. Time to make those wooden squares look like steel drain covers. A piece of mesh will do the trick. A hard lesson learned. If you use a tool to avoid super gluing your fingers, don't use your fingers. A few rough strokes with silver and gold marker and they look great. I then place them over the large hole we drilled earlier using double-sided tape so they stay in place, but will be easy to remove if I decide to drive wire through in the future. Next, the steel rails. For this, I'm using metal coat hanger, which I bend using a wire bender that electricians use. Next is the branding of the Pitwall. For that, I'm using this Rolex printouts. Again, you can download them from the link in the description. You're welcome. As we are done with the wall, we're now going to make the fencing. I'm using these H-shaped plastic rods that you can get from your local hobby shop or order from AliExpress. Link in the description. For starters, we're going to paint them to give them a metal look. Avoid giving them a perfect silver coat. Imperfection is the key to make them look more realistic. Now it's time to cut them into size. For 132 scale, I cut them 97 millimeters long and then make a mark at 26 and 82 millimeters. The first part will be used to mount the fence in the wall and the other to make a 45-degree angle on the top. To do an accurate 45 angle, I make a cut directly across the mark without cutting all the way, and then using this small guide, do a 45-degree cut above it. You don't really need the guide, but it helps if you have one. I then use some hot air to gently soften the plastic and bend it into place. At this stage, we don't need to glue it in place as we need it to be flexible for when we attach the panels. Next thing, the glass panels. I'm using the acrylic from an old poster frame I had around. Acrylic is expensive. A cheaper solution is to actually buy a poster frame from Kmart and use that instead. I cut them into 55 by 55 millimeter square panels and then do some magic to turn them into glass. It's a simple trick. By painting the edges with a green marker, it gives you the impression that it is glass. I then assemble the whole thing as shown using super glue. Just be careful you don't super glue your fingers. I also add some smaller pieces at the top, and once done, attach it to the wall. With that, the build is completed. For some extra detail, I use a gold-colored marker to add rust marks here and there. I use gold instead of a more raddish copper-like color, as I find it resembles better the rust on a relatively new galvanized metal surface. If I was to do a really old-looking project, I would use copper color. Now, to attach the walls to my base, I use double-side tape. My initial plan was to use dowels to make a Lego-like interchangeable connection system, but the walls sit so well to the base that it seems like an overkill. Even the double-side tape is just there to prevent the pieces to move around. And with that, you're done and dusted.